and welcome to episode number 22 of Basha's Thoughts. Today, I'd like to talk to you about things that move us, things that make us feel whole, things that are meaningful and make us feel alive and connected. And the reason why these moments that move us are interesting is that they themselves can actually be a healing experience for us. And they can also help bring about meaning and show us the way in our life, show us what it is that we find meaningful, what purpose we might have. And if at any point we are lost, not knowing what we're doing here on earth, well, then that could be something that would actually feel deeply satisfying and meaningful to us in particular. So, healing, why are moments that move us healing? Well, see, these moments often have to do with things that actually happened to us when we were tiny. And these are the developmental traumas that created deep-seated beliefs, sometimes even before we were able to properly think. And so these beliefs are so deeply rooted in us that they are also guarded by defense mechanisms. These defense mechanisms don't want to let us feel the terrible beliefs that we have come to take on because they are so terrible, because they are so traumatic, and we don't really want to see that. And so we will tend to automatically react to situations so quickly that we don't even realize that it's not really us, it's our defense mechanism. And if you have ever looked into bioenergetics, well, there are a couple of basic bioenergetic beliefs. Some of them are, for instance, that you are not worthy, or that there is lack, or that you're being used, or humiliated, or maybe that you are unlovable as you are with all that you have. Maybe you need to get rid of some of your instincts or get rid of parts of you in order to be lovable, and you have that belief. These are just some of the basic bioenergetics beliefs that you might have. So, what moves you? If you can find that, if you can find a couple of situations at least from your life, things that moved you deeply, and then ask, why did that thing move me? See, for another person, that particular thing wouldn't be even registered, and yet for you somehow that might have meant everything. Why? See, when you can ask that question, you might be able to see a pattern forming, and that pattern will be pointing to perhaps one or even more of these underlying beliefs that you have. But the really interesting part about this way of looking at your underlying beliefs is that you're actually looking at a way of healing them, because what moved you made you feel a little bit more whole. And the healing process is something that will make it possible for you to become more present and not hijacked by the defense mechanisms that are just wildly reactive. Instead, you can become defense-free, not defenseless, defense-free, because you are fearless. The fear of that being true is no longer upheld. So you open up more as you become more defense-free, and you are able to connect with others automatically because you are defense-free. See, whenever someone else feels or senses a defense in you, well, then they feel, well, I have to defend myself too. So the defenses go up on both sides. And so if you can stay open, well, then the others don't have to take up arms and they don't have to take up shields. There is no fight. Instead, you can connect and you can find your meaning, your purpose, because it will feel deeply satisfying. And then you can start thinking about how you can create these kinds of moments of deep connected meaning for others. All right, so that's kind of theoretical in a sense. Let me give you a couple of examples. So let me give you a few examples of things that have deeply moved me, and see if you can find the pattern in them and the underlying belief. So one thing that happened to me was when I was turning 17. I was in the US and I was living with a family, and there was a family friend who would come and visit. He would hang out with the family. He was maybe 3 years older than I was. I didn't have any special relationship with him. He knew my name and we exchanged words, but he was always there hanging out with everyone else. And my interactions with him were basically him asking me who is there to hang out with, and me telling him, well, this person is, the other person went out, and okay, that's it. So at one point, when we were all hanging out, we were talking about music, and someone asked me, well, Basha, what kind of music do you like? And I told them that actually I kind of like George Michael, that kind of music. And everyone else liked different types of music, so nobody else really reacted to this. And the conversation went on. So this was just something that was mentioned once at some point. And when my birthday came, I did not expect to get any presents from this family friend. And yet he gave me a present. So that was really surprising and very nice, very kind of him. And he gave me 2 tapes. That's how you kind of listen to music in those days. So one was a tape with George Michael, and the other one was also with George Michael. It was the band Wham from the 80s. And it was amazing to me because this was something deeply meaningful. See, at that time, especially at that age when you're 16, 17, in my case, I was mostly surrounded by peers that mostly used any personal information they could get to beat you over the head with. So I was used to the idea that whenever I shared any kind of personal information, I would be ridiculed, that people would laugh at me and make fun of me and beat me basically over my head with that information and use it against me in some way. That was the norm for me. And here was this person that was basically my age. He was 3 years older, but he used information in a different way. He didn't take that information, that personal information, and beat me over my head with. He used it to make my life more beautiful. He actually gave me a present and he stopped, thought about it, and he did make my life much more beautiful. So that was one example of something that really moved me at that time. Another example would be a dentist. So I went to the dentist and I told the dentist that I'm kind of a little bit uncomfortable around dentists, but okay, let's go. And he was doing stuff in my mouth and he noticed that I was getting tense. He could see that in my body language. And he would automatically start to try to find ways of getting me to relax. So he would start telling jokes, he would start laughing, he would start singing songs to me as he was drilling. And it was amazing to me because he was very present in the moment, noticing what was going on with me, with my body language, not just with the tooth and in the mouth. I wasn't saying anything and I was trying not to show too much of anything, and yet he was able to perceive and pick up on those things. And he was able to really get me to relax. So that was also something that was very kind and moved me, because he never told me, oh, relax now, you have to relax. No, he made things around me. He created situations around me. He created an atmosphere, and he did his very best to achieve that, instead of maybe just telling me, no, you should relax. So there was no judgment. Instead, there were actions that were quite helpful in that situation for me. So that was also something that moved me. One third and last example. I have a friend, and she is someone who is in many ways very different from me. And yet she is a very special friend. And so one day she figured out that tango is important to me. And she, if there is such a person, is the anti-dancer. She really is not into dancing. She's not interested in it. She doesn't really like tango music. And she is super busy, has no time. And yet, she convinced me that she absolutely needed to go to a tango event, and dragged me out with her to go to a tango event. So that was amazing to me, because if you can understand how something is important for someone else or to someone else, and so you can resonate with that and say, yeah, this is really important for you. I'm going to help you to do this, achieve this. And then it's nice if you help a person in that way. But in her case, it was something that was exactly the opposite. She had absolutely no personal interest at all in any of it. And yet, she on her own figured out that this was something that was important to me. And so she made it happen. All right, so can you see the pattern? Can you see what is going on? What it is that actually moves me? What it is that is the underlying belief? See, there's one more thing. These moments that move me only move me when they are genuine and come from a real place of caring. They do not move me when they come from a place of have to. I have to do this, so then I do this. For instance, someone pays you to do something, well, you expect them to do that, well, then they do that. So when there is an obligation and someone feels that they have to, maybe they are invited to a birthday and so they should bring a present. That kind of should does not move me. When it's something that is totally expected of them in some way, it does not move me. When it is something that comes from guilt, someone else feels guilty, and so in some sense they figure out that it would be better to give me something or do something. No, when it comes from a sense of compromise, okay, you did this, well, I will do that for you. No, that does not move me. Also, it doesn't move me when it comes from the defense mechanisms of other people, from the deep-seated programs, and it often does, especially in the schizoid person. You will find that they will focus so much more on the other people. But especially in those cases, sometimes a person will have an apparent way of caring, and yet it is more a type of subtle manipulation or mental self-care, you could say, because they will be slightly manipulating you, and they will think that they do it because they are caring, but it is their defense mechanism that does it. See, whenever that happens, whenever people pay me compliments, and I can see it coming from that, then it almost has the opposite effect on me, especially if they are thought out compliments, and I can see that they don't really come genuinely directly from a place of caring. There may be a little bit of caring somewhere, but they originate from the defense mechanism or from the person having an agenda and wanting something. Whenever I see that, the effect in me is not only does it not move me, it just almost makes me more sad, if anything. So it is only when these moments occur in a spontaneous, voluntary way, and they are acts, so they are not words. They are not a person saying what they will do or judging, like the dentist, for instance, could have judged and looked at me and said, "You should relax more." He never did that. There was no judgment. There were no words telling me what to do. Instead, he was trying to create a more pleasant experience for me. So it's only when these spontaneous, voluntary acts of caring appear in that way that they move me. Because, and this is the underlying pattern, because then they show to me that I might matter, that my happiness, my life, my experience actually matters. Someone did something to make my experience more beautiful. Someone did something to help me find meaning, to help me relax, to help me whatever it is. And so that shows me that maybe I matter. And that's the healing part. The healing part is opening up the possibility that maybe I just might matter. I might be worthy of everything, of existence, of happiness, and so on. This is just one of those beliefs, and it's tied to the schizoid structure. But there are many others, and often we will tend to have others as well. We might have one that is stronger and others that are a little bit less strong, but still quite meaningful. The deepest seated belief will be the one that will create the most healing whenever we find a situation that moves us. So how can I create these kinds of moments for others? What could I do in order to create them for others? So, actually, the absolute best way for me to be able to create those kinds of situations for others is to become defense-free and fearless. Because as long as I have my defense mechanisms acting, I'm not acting out of caring. And so I would not have been moved by that. I would not have been moved by an act of apparent kindness that comes from a defense mechanism. And so if I want to create these kinds of moments for others, I have to learn to become healed, and healed on the level of the personality. Because of course, this and this personality, they are not really real. They are not the real me. I am not my defense mechanisms. I am the one perceiving them, or maybe letting them go on, letting them have fun, or maybe not playing them out. The real you doesn't have these beliefs. The real you is always worthy. The real you is always abundant. The real you is never used and humiliated. The real you is loved totally and fully with all that comes with you. And so, if we can identify with who we really are, then healing will automatically start sipping into our experience. And until we are able to identify with our true, real being, well, then we have these moments that move us that can be very helpful, because they can point us to how we can heal, how we can move in that direction to become that worthy, abundant, loving being. And they can also point out to us what it is that will be the most satisfying for us to do for others in this lifetime. Something that we can take on as a purpose. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you in another podcast episode. Take care.